Hi everyone! Our friend Alfred Hitchcock made a film inspired by a dirty deed. A guy named Howley Harvey Crippen supposedly knocked off his wife most heinously. 100 years after his execution, it came out that he was innocent. How can that be? The mitochondrial DNA said so. What exactly happened there and what it has to do with mitochondria will now be revealed. In the videos about animal and plant cells, we learned a bit about cell organelles. The mitochondrion is an organelle that exists in nearly all eukaryotes. There are a few exceptions, but we'll ignore them for now. Prokaryotes do not have mitochondria. The first important point, therefore, is mitochondria exist only in eukaryotes. So now let's look at their structure and makeup. Then we will see what the little bits are all about. The mitochondrion is bound by two membranes. It has one outer and one inner membrane. If you don't know exactly what makes up a membrane, you can watch our video about membranes. Both mitochondria membranes consist of a double lipid layer and proteins. The outer membrane encloses the entire mitochondrion and contains channels for molecules to pass through. The inner membrane is folded over on itself and fills up the interior of the mitochondrion. The space enclosed by the inner membrane is called the matrix. The matrix contains lots of enzymes, ribosomes, mitochondrial DNA, and tRNA. The matrix also plays an important role in cell respiration. There are three types of mitochondria: the cristae type, the tubulus type, and the sacculus type. The inner membranes of each look a little different, so they are easy to tell apart. Cristae-type mitochondria have lots of folds in the inner membrane. These folds are called cristae. This greatly increases the surface area of the membrane and lots more chemical reactions can take place. And ATP can be produced more quickly. In the cells where steroids are produced, the mitochondria are the tubulus type. In this case, the inner membrane forms tubules. This also serves to increase the surface area. The third type is the sacculus type, where the inner membrane has tube-shaped folds with small, round pockets. Sometimes a fourth type of mitochondria is also mentioned, the prisma type. The inversions there are triangular. This type of mitochondria exists only in special cells in the liver. Above all, energy is generated by cellular respiration in the mitochondria. That means that food energy is converted into small packets of energy, the ATP. Components of the cellular respiration are the citric acid cycle in the matrix and the respiratory chain on and in the membrane. In the citric acid cycle, energy is released and converted into ATP in the respiratory chain. In brief, food energy is burned together with oxygen into carbon dioxide and water. In order to keep things from overheating when the energy is released, the mitochondrion stores it in the form of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, via a few chemical steps. This is a nucleotide with one adenine part, one sugar part, and three phosphates. To release energy, one phosphate is split off, as this bond contains the stored energy. Adenosine triphosphate thus becomes adenosine diphosphate, and energy, of course, which is released by the splitting. The whole thing is thus fairly simple. The mitochondria store the energy in ATP, and when a cell needs energy, it just splits off one phosphate part and receives the energy. Energy in the form of ATP is very important for the body. Example, lack of ATP in the muscles causes rigor mortis. ATP is the universal energy carrier for all cells and is the regulator of the important energy supplying process. What else does a mitochondrion do? For one thing, it stores calcium. It also contains programmed cellular death, also known as apoptosis. The cell destroys itself, like a kind of kamikaze. This can be useful, however, such as when the uterus shrinks after birth. Cellular death is thus not always a bad thing. What else do you need to know about mitochondria? When their time has come to leave this world, they are broken down by the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, and the lysosomes. Another thing is that mitochondria are passed along only on the mother's side. This means that all of your mitochondria come from your mother and not a single one from your father. Children of the same mother therefore all have the same mtDNA, so a relationship can be proven 100%. For close relatives, there is no variation. By the way, mitochondria are not just summed up over and over again. They are created only during division or by budding. Let's get back to Howler Harvey Crippen. 100 years after the execution, a clever guy thought what was claimed at the time could not be right. The DNA from the murder victim was examined again. The mitochondrial DNA was compared to the DNA from her and Crippen's daughter, and the result was the dead person was not even Mrs. Crippen. Ha! So he had nothing to do with the murder. The victim no longer had a head, by the way, in case you were wondering why this wasn't obvious from the start. Okay, the most important stuff in brief. Mitochondria exist only in eukaryotes. They have an inner and outer membrane that consist of a double lipid layer and proteins. The space enclosed by the inner membrane is called the matrix and contains enzymes, ribosomes, mtDNA, and tRNA. The matrix is the location where cellular respiration happens. There are 3 types of mitochondria: Cristier type, tubulus type, and sacculus type. The mitochondria's job is to extract energy via cellular respiration, so they are the power plants of the cell. Energy extraction consists of the citrate cycle and the respiratory chain. In the end, the whole thing produces ATP, which is the universal energy carrier in cells. Mitochondria also store calcium and regulate apoptosis. When it comes to reproduction, this happens by division or by budding. Also remember this, mitochondria are always passed down from the mother. So, now you know. Blah blah blah, end card. Bye-bye, y'all. Whatever.